computer. Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God, thank you. It was not. Hi guys, if you're watching live, welcome. I'm so excited to have like the amazing goddess, self-love goddess, Amelia. I have so much to share with you guys about like how I know her and how she's been such a huge inspiration in my own journey in so many different ways. And actually, even like getting started with Intentions Manifest, and a lot was planted in seeds that Amelia kind of put out there. And I just rolled with it in my own way. So I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for what you're doing with Intentions Manifested. And I was like, I see you. It's so good. It's so good.
I've been trying to get you to come like chat with me for so long because I'm always like, Amelia, you have no idea like what I'm going through. Like you just plant a seed and I just like make a whole tree out of it. You know what
I
mean?
love it. It's so beautiful to see. And I'm so excited. We need more people doing this kind of work. So I'm so happy.
I agree. So the reason why I invited you to chat today is because you call yourself the self-love oracle. But before we get into a conversation, I first want to share with people a little bit about how we know each other. And I think people are joining, so I'm going to let them in. I want to share a little bit. I want people to know a little bit of our background because I think it's just like we have such a special connection. And, you know, you have so many breakthroughs for me that challenged some of my old patterns of thinking about life. So I met Amelia when she was dating my husband. At the time, I was also dating him. We were not married. One of his best friends. He was actually his best man at our wedding. And when I met Amelia, I was just like super drawn to her. She's a Cancer like I am, but I was like, wow.
July Cancer.
Oh my God. And I was like, why is she so open and like free? And I'm like, and I'm so like in a bubble, in a shell. Like I haven't really let that out. I'm like, who's this girl? At first it was intimidating, but not like in a bad way. It was just more like, who is she? You know? But she was so sweet and welcoming. And one of the memories that I have of us sharing time together is like when we went skiing and like you lent me your whole skiing gear and we were, you know, it was just like so much fun. But you know, in terms of like challenging my mindset and helping me think about like how to, you know, rethink some of the things that we grow up seeing and believing. I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I came when I was 9, and some of the stories that I heard is girls don't play with boys, girls have to dress a certain way, behave a certain way. I was the good girl, which you know, my previous chat last week, it's like, which one are you? Which Latina archetype are you? Because it's either the good, the fuerte, so the good, la buena, the fuerte, the strong. And I forget the last one, the mala. I don't think it's the mala. There's like something else. But I was definitely like the good girl, you know.
Yeah,
and I think it was like, even if it wasn't me, it was like the, you know, what I was aligning myself with just to be liked. When I met you, I remember some of the things that we did. It's like you were so free with your body. You could tell that, you know, there was something in you that was like so magnetic and special. And I was so drawn to you and following your work. And now, you know, for the formal introduction, I know that you're doing amazing work with self-love and teaching others how to love themselves and, you know, support them in that journey. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And oh, thank you for taking me on that trip down memory lane. Yeah, and actually, when we first met, I was still working on Wall Street. I was a VP on Wall Street, so I was very much in the corporate life. I have a degree in engineering, and so I was still in a box. And since then I have broken free from that box, and so now I am a self-love coach and healer and certified hypnotherapist. And I work with clients privately and in groups. And I actually created and developed a global online platform that is called Self-Love Story, and it is online and it reaches, I'm so excited to get to say this, it reaches thousands of people all across the world. And it's really the purpose to teach people how to love themselves more and make self-care a priority. So that's what I do. And it's just really, really incredible. I create content and I work with people individually and in groups. And it's very different from Wall Street.
Yeah, I know. And like even then I remember thinking of you as a free spirit. And then watching everything unfold, you know, you planted so many seeds. And again, this is not about our journey, it's about how can we help people align with self-love. So why don't you tell us, what is self-love? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, so when I first started Self-Love Story, not as many people were talking about it like self-care and stuff as they are now, which is great. But what I find is that sometimes people think, oh, self-love, whatever. It's like, I love myself. I'm going to go to the spa. I'm going to get a massage. But I like to call it like courageous self-love, which is like you actually boldly and deeply look at yourself and love all the parts of you, right? The good, the ugly, the messy, the pretty, and becoming more unapologetically you. Because in my opinion, self-love is like no exceptions, must have ingredient in order to really create like the relationships, the career, the lifestyle, the bank account that you want. And I find like people like, how do I make more money? Or how do I have the career that I want? Or how do I have the relationships that I want? And a lot of the stuff that's out there is like this like tactical, like, this is how you text a man that you like to get him to like you back. Or these are the investments that you should make to have more money. And a lot of it is really missing like that inner work. Because like the outer work, the steps are actually easy, like go on some dates, learn how to invest, all these different things, learn how to get the job you want. But if you don't have a core of like deep self-love, you can get results. But I mean, I've done it like, but it's not as fulfilling. Like you don't experience peace and fulfillment because somewhere along the way, you're kind of like selling out a little bit, right?
I agree. Like, it's a little
right?
bit on the surface. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your own self-love journey and how it began, and, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like actually my dad told me this a few years ago, and he's like, you now my whole family, everyone knows me like the self-love oracle, the self-love queen, self-love, self-love. And a few years ago, my dad said to me, he's like, you've always been like a self-love advocate, even since you were a little girl. So I've always been like the type of person that wanted to help people through their problems, help them realize who they really are. So it started like when I was a little girl, but what I would say is there were like two major things in my self-love journey. And one was with career, which, like I said, when you and I met back in, what was it, like 2010 or something, 2009 or 2010, I was still working on Wall Street. And so I was a VP on Wall Street. So supposedly I should love myself, right? Because everyone was looking at what I did and how much money I made. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. But the truth was, I would go to bed at night dreading work the next morning. And I felt like on some deep level, I was like selling out. So a big part of finding self-love was actually leaving Wall Street and starting my own business. And in the relationship side, I was actually back in college. I was in a really abusive relationship when I was like 19 to 21. So most of my college life. And when I got out of that relationship, which we can talk more about if you have questions about that, but when I got out, which was really hard actually, I realized, of course, I don't condone abuse or like toxic relationships, but that's him. That was his problems. What I realized was, wow, how much did I actually love myself, or how much did I like have self-loathing that I even chose that relationship and stayed in it. So I would say, as terrible as that experience was, that really like got me to connect with this deep sense of, oh, I have a choice here. I need to love myself more, because if I don't, I'm going to keep accepting bad jobs, bad careers, bad relationships. So that was really the start that planted like a deep, deep seed of like, I got to learn what's going on with me. That's really how it started.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's true, because I, I keep hearing that like what we experience in our external world is usually a manifestation of how we feel inside. So what would you say were the first like tiny little steps that you took towards this self-love journey?
Yeah, so with the relationship, that kind of like took me a little while. And I'll say about that. But what happened before was when I was working on Wall Street, And some people who follow me know this story, but there was a time I was like maybe 22 years old and, graduated college as a VP, and that was like huge deal. So like, okay, I'm feeling myself, I got a good career, but I was literally sitting at my desk one time. And if any of you are in finance, it's like all about spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. And I was like working on this spreadsheet. I was stressing out over some formulas, and I just kind of like sat back and took a break. And I was kind of like, is this my life? Like, because we were taught you graduate when, or you retire when you're like in your late 60s, early 70s. And I'm like 22 years old. And I was like, is this literally what I have to do? Is this happiness? Is this success? Because supposedly it is, according to society. Why don't I feel successful? Why don't I feel passionate, creative, pleasurable, like, why am I dreading every day? And it was like this light bulb was like, okay, maybe this isn't it, because everyone says if you do these steps you'll be fulfilled. I was not. So the first steps was really like realizing that I'm in a situation that I actually don't want, even though everyone is saying you're successful, you should feel fulfilled, you should be happy. So that's really like awareness is always the first step, where I was like, I'm not happy, I don't feel successful, and I don't feel fulfilled. Okay, now what? And then the next minor step is asking the right questions. Like, are there people that feel happy and fulfilled? Do I know any? How can I get to learn? So that was like the start of like my personal development journey. I started reading books and articles. I even took people to lunch and interviewed them and was like, okay, you seem happy and fulfilled and creative and passionate. What are you doing? So that really helped. But what really like kicked it off even more was I did the work. I did personal development workshops, and a lot more people are open to like workshops and classes. But back then it was like you were like weird or like woo woo to like take a personal development class. It like felt weird. But I really needed to do those to actually experience what was blocking me and learn tools how to like unblock, right? Because at the time I'm like in my early 20s, but that's over 2 decades of conditioning from culture, parents, society, of like, this is how you're supposed to be. Like you were talking about, right? You were the good girl, right? I also had that too. I was the good girl that followed all the rules. And I'm over here like, this is a scam. I followed all the rules. So like, why am I not like blissful right now? So really doing personal development workshops. And that's actually what planted the seed for me to want to do this work. So now I took the workshops. I still take workshops, of course, because you're never done, but now I get to teach workshops and classes and do this work with other people. So those were like the small steps that eventually led to where I am today.
Amazing. And we have some questions. Let me see if they're related to what we're talking about. It says here, thank you for sharing. Will you consider it self-loathing or self-neglect if you had to stay in a bad relationship? Keyword, if you had to stay. And I could relate to that, because sometimes if you're married and you have kids, it's very difficult to make the decision to say, I'm going to step out and leave, because you have another person involved in the equation, and now you have to think about everything, not just yourself. So yeah, what is your answer to that?
I mean, any part in your life where you feel stuck and like you have to stay in something that is not nurturing and healthy for you, there's a little bit of like a self-loathing, neglect, like codependency happening there. And it's like this energy that leaves you entangled. And like you said, Leslie, like, I'm not going to say it's easy, right? Sometimes you're in too deep. You're in really, really deep, like with marriage and kids and finances. But the idea is, hopefully before you get too entangled, you consider these things and work on your self-love so that you don't enmesh into these codependent situations. Now, when you are in one, I mean, right, I think of like when your necklace gets tangled or when your hair gets tangled and you're just like, oh my God, it's a mess. But you can't just rip it apart. You'll break everything, right? So it really starts with, if you are enmeshed and entangled and in a really deep situation. It's like, I like to say it's like unbraiding, like one at a time, either through therapy or coaching or healing, and give yourself the time, right? Because it took time to get you all tangled up. So it might take time to slowly untangle you. And for me, it did. I was in that relationship for like almost 3 years. And it took a lot for me to like untangle from that. And even when I broke up with him and broke away, I had to do a lot of coaching and healing and therapy to like energetically untangle so that I can be like really free. So it is a lot of work, but I would say it would tie back to like self-neglect and self-loathing and asking those questions like, what is keeping me here?
I love that idea of like untangling things as you're there, provided obviously it's not a dangerous situation in which you're getting physically abused, and exploring those emotions. I do love that idea of like untangling things and not just walking away, because sometimes, as I said, I think sometimes what we're experiencing is a direct manifestation of what we're feeling inside and what we're willing to accept from others. Like the boundaries that we're setting. So let's see. There's another question here.
A lot of questions. I love it.
My question is hard to frame. I keep hearing people saying it starts with healthy self-love. I feel challenged by this idea because I have felt it starts with family or community dynamics. How do you practice self-love in a vacuum? That's a very interesting question.
Ooh, I love that question. And I will say it's like a classic chicken or the egg, like what came first. And so I would agree that family and community dynamics is a big part of it. And family and community dynamics do strongly influence your idea of self. So it's not like this or that, it's both. And if everything's tangled, it's like pick a door or pick a place to start. So you can start looking at family dynamics, but even if you start there, it will ultimately lead to how did family and community dynamics influence my opinion of myself, right? So it's not just a vacuum. And I love that you said that. It's not just a vacuum. We do heal better in community. And sometimes it will require, stepping away and creating some separation from some toxic dynamics, family or friends or whoever, so that you can kind of like clear out the weeds and say like, okay, what's going on with me? Because interdependence is different than codependence, right? If your sense of self is codependent on your family dynamics, then they're braided. So, you could look at family dynamics, but that will ultimately lead you to how has that influenced yourself? Then you could start looking at yourself and you can see how does that show up in family dynamics? And the idea is to have a healthy interdependence where you can be in community and also not lose yourself. So it's like healthy sense of self. And then how does that fit in interdependently with the greater community? So I hope that answers that question, right? So it doesn't have to just be in a vacuum. You have your time for yourself though. And then, of course, we're not just going to be isolated, and that's no fun either. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, actually, guys, I want you to post in the comments, what is your biggest struggle when it comes to self-love here? And hopefully we could have Amelia help us like break through that, So if you have more questions, please post them in the comments. I do feel that anytime we're relying on external validation for our happiness, that's a trap. We really need to come, as you mentioned at the beginning, to the core of who we are. And that is the hardest part, in my opinion. What do you think has been the hardest part for you in, as you came into this journey of self-love, self-discovery? What was the biggest challenge for you?
There are a lot of challenges, but I would say the ongoing challenge is realizing that you're never done. I'm the self-love oracle. I'm the self-love queen. I teach self-love and I still struggle with self-loathing. That's like some next level like stuff to really come to terms with. We're never done. And so it's been hard because sometimes I'll like face similar problems or similar like limiting beliefs and stuff. And I'll be like, oh God, like I thought I learned this, or I thought I got over this. And that's a trap too. Like you said, it's another trap where it's like, now I'm getting stuck in like that spiraling down. But what I want you all to know is, if you feel that way, it doesn't mean that you didn't learn the lesson. It could just be that you're ready for the next level of that. Right? I know you feel like, because
leveling up. That's
exactly
what I call that. That means that the universe, like, it's like, okay, you got over this. Let's keep leveling you up. You know what I mean?
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, just to like clarify that even more, you will face the same problems over and over again. Like I believe, like you, Leslie, me, Amelia, everyone on this call, we have our like set of challenges that we came here to face. And so we are going to kind of face the same challenges. And so for me, when I face kind of the same crap that I did even 10 years ago, it's hard for me to be like, oh, look at you, you're doing the same old crap again. But it's like, no, I'm actually leveling up. So I actually get excited when some of my same stuff comes up, because I'm like, oh, it's because I'm actually leveling up, because my same limiting beliefs are going to come up again. So it's an exciting thing. Get excited when your stuff comes up instead of like beating up on yourself. That means that you're like,
exactly. Yeah. And like a lot of grace too. Like let yourself, like if you're going through that, like allow those feelings to come out. Like for me, it's something that I did a lot is like write them down. Because it's almost like you're bringing those fears to the surface, so you know what's on your mind, and then you can work with someone like Amelia to change your mindset around those things or change those situations. But if you just keep them inside and you're like, oh no, I'm not like that, or you try to deny yourself of that experience, then you're holding it in, and it just gets more covered in the mud, and it's harder to uncover down the line.
You said something really important, like, and I just want everyone listening to like really like what you just said, because even just writing it down means you're facing it. Because a lot of times we get stuck or we get anxious or depressed or whatever because we're not just looking at what it is. It's like, write down the thing that you're afraid of. I'm going to run out of money. I'm never going to find love. Like whatever, like write it down and like face it. And that that's really important. And that's like lifestyles. Self-love is a lifestyle. It's a mastery. You never get there. Because if you did, like we'd all be up in heaven somewhere, like partying. But we're here in a human body, in a sack of meat and bones. So we're gonna keep doing the work,
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love that it's a journey you take with yourself, and you'll find pains and pleasure along the way, but it's a journey. It's almost like you gamify your life a little bit, and it's a good approach. Do we have any more questions on the chat? Let me just see. I don't see any other questions, but I do have more. I want to ask you, when you think about yourself before you went on this journey versus now, can you give us what does that look like?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I want to say this, and thank you when you introduced and how we met. There was always that light, and not just me, like all of you, there is your natural essence and your natural light that was there before you were born, when you went into your mother's womb, and is always with you. Now, it can be clouded by a lot of stuff like family dynamics, traumas that have happened, mistakes that you've made. And so the journey is really it's not about changing you, because your essence is always going to be you. There's that light, that gift, that special sauce that you have, that like there's 8 billion people on the planet and like literally nobody like you. So the journey is really about like unpeeling that, right? So in terms of like a before and after, I always had whatever it is that you see in me right now, the good stuff, I always had it. But like before, let's just go back 10 years. I mean, I was definitely a lot more scared of intimacy. I was in a lot of like toxic dating patterns. One of my toxic dating patterns was I would be really obsessed and into someone that was like just unavailable. Just either they were an asshole, or they were just unavailable, or they lived in another state or another city, and I always wanted them. And then there was always someone that like really wanted to be with me, and I just like wasn't really that into them. And that was like this crazy cycle. But what really was going on was I was scared of intimacy, like healthy intimacy. So, and I was scared of my power, like not only in relationships, but also in career. Like when I first started Self Love Story like 7 years ago now, and I mean, I was bold to start it, but looking back to like the first year of my business to now, I'm a lot more like unapologetic. I'm a lot more into my pleasure and my sexuality and my sensuality. I'm a lot more like, let's go, like a lot more authentic, because society and family dynamics and culture will have us think that we need to mask who we really are. And so I showed up, I had a lot more tension in my body. I was like afraid of like showing up. I remember like just to like do something like this, I would be like crying for like 30 minutes before. But like today I was like, I'm about to talk to Leslie. We're going live. Like, this is what I do now, you know? So, and it's a lot freer. It's a lot more peaceful. I set boundaries. Like I used to have all kinds of enmeshed code. I used to be so afraid of authority and like saying the wrong thing. And now I'm just like, look, this is who I am. Either you're with it or you're not. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my God, I got really goosebumps because so one of my biggest fears is public speaking. And what do? I've been doing this because I'm like, you're not gonna get a hold of me. So sometimes that we fear the most kind of like hold some of our superpowers too. And it's finding that. It's like wherever you feel fear, that might be an opportunity for you to connect with something special about yourself. You know, it sounds weird, very weird, but where there's fear, there's something there to explore, in my opinion. Fear sometimes holds us back from ourselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
I'll even share a specific thing that came up. And I also just want to reflect back to you. Like I've known you for a long time and you are just like, your own. It's crazy to me to hear that you have a fear of public speaking, because like you're like glowing right now and you're like running your Facebook group. It's just do the work. This is how it happens. You got to do the work. A specific example, like now, if you follow me on Instagram or any of my stuff, I have a lot of photos. I've done like dozens of photo shoots in the last 10 years. Before I ever did, this was just for headshots, for professional headshots. I was literally crying and like so afraid when I was just Googling photographers. So like, just look at that from, and now I'm like, oh, photo shoot? What do you want to
exactly. You know what it is? And it's a fear of judgment. And once you realize, you know what, I love, no matter how I show up, and no matter what other people think or say, I still know who I am, and you know, connected to that inner power. That's what we're searching for, I think, when it comes to self-love. Can you please talk to us about like, or those people that are like having a hard time connecting with that self-love? I have a friend, I mean, gorgeous girl. She always comes on my live, and you know, she really enjoys what I put out there. And every time, you know, we're chatting, she'll say things like, you know, I can't connect to that. I don't know how to connect with that self-love. And you know, she has the family, she has the house, you know, life seems normal, but she's still not feeling self-love. How can someone like her connect with herself more? Like what are some tips that you have for someone like that?
That's such a good question. And I'm so glad you asked that, because this is important for a lot of things. If we are trying to effort to do something, so like connect with self-love, or I have a lot of clients that are like, abundance, what the hell is that? Like I just can't connect with it. And like you're like trying to like connect, or like one of the basic things I cover with my clients is like your negative self-talk. And it's like, how do I stop this negative self-talk? It's like, for some reason and I think it's because of this hustle culture, we always want to just do it. But sometimes there's a resistance. So we can't just connect. Like let's say this is self-love. I can't just like go get it. If there's a resistance there, we first have to like see what that is, because that resistance is a lot about protection. And there's like a fear there. And so I like to say, like, make friends with your feelings. I like to say, make friends with your fear, make friends with your resistance. So instead of being like, how do I connect to self-love? A better pre-question could be like, what is blocking me? Or what's the resistance there? Or sometimes people connect with the word numb. Here's another example. I work a lot with the body, right? It's like multiple levels, right? That's why I say just reading a book and just reading memes is not going to get your results. You know this, right? Like we share memes all day. There's tons of memes about self-love and therapy, but like you actually need to do the work. So because that memes and books and podcasts, that just gets you here. You also have to connect here with your heart, with your emotions, and with your body. So sometimes when I work with a client and I'm like, okay, what do you feel in your body? They're like, I don't know, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And it's just like, okay, maybe you're not ready to feel something yet. Or tell me more about this nothing that you feel. Or would you say it's numbness? Okay, now tell me about the numbness, right? So with someone that's like, I can't connect to self-love, it's like, okay, well, what are you connecting with? What is it then? Oh, maybe it's a block. I don't know. It's a block. Okay, tell me about this block. What does it feel like? Well, every time I think about connecting to self-love, it feels like this brick wall just boom comes down in front of me. Okay, tell me about this brick wall. What does it feel like? You know what I mean? And when I work with people, kind of we work through that, because you can't just like connect to self-love. Sometimes we're ready, sometimes it's right there, but if there's a block, or if there's an inability or a stuckness, there's something in the way. So it's either like a block that's in the way, or it's something you're still holding on to that you need to let go of.
Yeah. And I think one mistake that a lot of people make is that they think they need to do it alone. They think that they have to go through it by themselves. I'm sorry, do you want to like expedite that process, or do you want to just like sit there and try to break a pattern that you haven't been able to do on your own forever? We need that. Sometimes like that's why we need others. There's a question, a direct message. You can't see it, but it says here, I hope my words, I hope my words for explaining my struggle, which I have noticed others experience as well. Sometimes the journey towards self-love feels quite lonely at times. It feels like we are in between of letting go of that and those that don't serve our self-love process, and feeling like we belong in a community of folks who embrace self-love. Did you experience this, and how did you handle that challenge?
Oh, that's such a good question, and so relatable, and literally what you just said. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a community. And here, like, I guess back to your question of like, what's been some of the hardest parts about the journey is letting go of some people and some places and some, things, I'm just going to relate it to addiction for a second, because I feel like it's a very potent example. Like when people, and I've never been addicted to drugs or alcohol, but I know a lot of people who have been, and I work with a lot of people who have been. When you let go of like drinking all the time, when you get sober, some of your party group friends, you're going to have to like either, it's not like you have to cut people off and be like, peace out, and block them. I mean, you can, but it's going to require a change of your lifestyle. So again, this is why I call it a self-love lifestyle, because as you learn and grow, that's just the truth. Your circle's going to get smaller and it's going to change. And then, yes, I get that it's going to feel lonely. And so like you just said, Leslie, in community, right? In a group like Leslie's group, Intentions Manifested, in a group like Self-Love Story, this is why I do group programs. I work with clients privately, which is great. And I get to really like dig deep with like one person for like an hour. But when I do my group programs and when we do my classes and workshops in community, oh, the magic is just like, and you find people, like a lot of people that have been in my programs are really close friends and they keep in touch, because you might be letting go of people from your past life, but what you'll be gaining, it's like what are you focused on? What you're losing or what you're gaining? You'll meet so many people that are aligned with you. And that has been my experience as well. Like when I started exploring healthy sexuality and sensuality, especially as a woman, and especially as a woman of color, women have been controlled in a lot of ways because of misogyny, but especially women of color, like our bodies have been commodified and fetishized. So when I started to explore healthy sexuality and sensuality, I found a community of like women that were on that journey too. And we like saw each other all the time, and we would dance together and we would feel ourselves. And I'm still really close friends with a lot of them. So, finding either a community that you resonate with, whether it's mine or Leslie's or another one. Like there's tons of communities, and you can shop around, and you'll find your people. And it does suck when you're in that transition place, and creating new relationships does take time, but it's worth it, because it's like you're nurturing a seed that's going to grow into this beautiful garden of like your best self. And I'm telling you now, like my circle of friends that I have now compared to like high school or college or even post-college, it's like so different. And here's an example. Look at like me and Leslie. We've known each other for like over 10 years now, and we're still connected. And we were very different when we first met, but look, our paths have crossed again because we were both on that journey. And we're like, I get it,
I see you. I see you.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would say also like let go of the anxiety of the what ifs, because sometimes we get in our heads about what's gonna happen. I know it's hard, but if you can, just trust the process. Because what I found in my own self-love journey is that I became even more magnetic. The people that I love even wanted to be around me more. And they were able to see me in my life because I made no excuses for it, I had people at work telling me like, oh my God, how are you so light? How do you carry yourself with such lightness around the office? Like where do you come from? But my thing is that I do this work that I enjoy because I am honoring my need for connection, my need for, I write a lot for Intentions Manifested, and that gives me so much joy. I'm able to bring that joy back into the life of others. But it's because I was able to connect with something that is coming from within, like a need that I have, that I'm not just shutting down and saying, oh, all right, like why am I writing? Why am I wasting my time? No, I need time for my family, for work, but I also need time for the things that I enjoy. And that's for me a form of self-love, because I'm honoring that thing that I really, really enjoy doing. But if anybody
I have goosebumps with how you just share that. I'm like, yes, magnetic.
Magnetic. I do feel magnetic. I'm like, yep, I'm not bothered about what you think. And somehow I'm able to shine my light.
It reminds me of a famous quote that I use as the foundation of everything that I do. It's a quote by Mark Nepo, and he says, "The flower doesn't dream of the bee. The flower blossoms and the bee comes." And all of my work is about that, like blossoming as the flower that you are, so you attract the right bees.
I need to be in your program, girl. And by the way, like femininity is like the one thing I'm trying to tackle right now, because I feel a tremendous block. I feel like, honestly, like I cannot connect to it. Even though I know
you're doing better than you think you are. I'll just tell you that, just from
really.
You're doing better than you think you are. And again, it's a practice. It's a life.
I wanna connect with my physical body. It's one thing that I think I've shunned down since I was a little girl, because I thought it was not appropriate or this or that. And I remember that again, one of our experiences is seeing you in the dance pool. I don't know if it's okay to share.
Yeah, that's
I was
totally
like, oh my God. At first I was like, how dare she? And then I was like, whoa, there's so much power in that. But it's like connecting with our body and not feeling shame around it. There's no reason for that. If there are no other questions, it says here, that is very common. Okay, it says, are you saying looks don't matter? That is a very common thing coming from good-looking people from fake eyelashes. No offense. My light right now.
Lashes are fake. I wear them because it makes me feel good. I'm not really sure what you mean by that question, but I'm just going to take a guess and you can clarify if you want. I will say that looks, what shows up on the outside is really more about a glow coming from the inside, and about a belief in yourself that you are beautiful, regardless of what's out there. And look, I will say this. The media and Hollywood and whatever is out there in mass media is not the place to look to want to feel beautiful, because they have projected a vision and an image that does not reflect what most people look like. And I've had to overcome a lot of stuff based on how I look, especially growing up in the 90s. And maybe you relate to this too, Leslie, as a woman of color, it's like all you see there is like really skinny, white, pretty people with like huge boobs and like flat stomachs, and like that is not my body, and that is not what my face looks like. I felt ugly and fat like most of my life.
So I relate to that a lot. I stopped watching TV, and I publicly say it to people that ask me, "Oh, have you seen this show?" No, I don't watch TV. Why? Because I rejected that. I'm like, you're rejecting me, I'll reject you back. I don't need you in my life. I don't see myself represented there. Why do I need to see that? I mean, if I decided I want to watch a show, I'll watch it. But for the most part, if I don't feel represented, I'd rather grab a book and be entertained in that way. It happens in the stores too. Like when you go to the store and you're like, like I'm short and I have hips and I love my body, but nothing fits and it's annoying. And you feel like there's something wrong with you when the reality is the fact that they're producing it, mass producing it to fit the majority of people. And it may not be what
Yeah.
you look like. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. And it's not even the actual majority of people, I'm an advocate for like, let's represent all bodies, all faces, all genders, all types and things like that, because it's just malpractice what's out there. And so actually for me, like you said, I curate what I watch and I curate my timeline. And I follow people that more represent me, not only based on looks, but also like mental health stuff. Like I follow a lot of like ADHD and anxiety and mental health stuff, because I mean, I'm not diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I've got anxiety and ADHD. So I follow that. I follow a lot of the different bodies and faces and all kinds of genders and sexualities, because what's curated for us by like mass media is like very small and not representative of the whole population.
Oh my God, I love that. Yes, curating your timeline. I think that's the beauty about social media now, that so many of us now have a platform. Follow people that actually inspire you and bring out the best in you, not people that make you feel like you're inaccurate or not inaccurate, but like not,
Good enough.
Not good enough, or like
I mean, I've had to mute people too. If
inadequate is the word, sorry.
I've had to mute people too, or even unfollow them, because like, especially like on Instagram, it's a very curated, like Kardashian makeup thing with like, the photoshopped bodies. And I'm just like, I don't look like that. So I don't need to see that all over the place.
Yeah, I mostly get in my feed people dancing or lots of positive stuff about people of color, like either people in history that have been super inspiring, or just beautiful positive messages. I'm like, I don't need you to tell me what I should look like. God does not make any mistakes, in my opinion. There's a question here that says, what about when people call that narcissistic? I was a beautiful woman and poured into myself. I kept being attacked. Now I've become hunched over and transformed by shame and grief.
That I can relate to that, and it kind of goes back to what Leslie said earlier about like the external messages that you're receiving and allowing them to influence you. And look, I'm not trying to bypass how hard that is. It sucks. I've been attacked. I've been mean girled. I've been bullied relentlessly. I was bullied relentlessly in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school. So it sucks. And it is very tempting to make yourself smaller. And that's just, we go through that phase, but ultimately it's about rebuilding yourself and loving yourself and accepting who you are. And anyone that calls feeling yourself narcissistic, they have issues with their own self-love, right? So like, don't let other people that are having issues with their self-love influence your self-love journey. And I know that's easier said than done. But like I said, it's a process, right? And slowly, like, if however you can, like not listening to that and staying away from that toxicity as much as you can. And I know that it could be hard depending on what your situation is, but the more we can move away from that kind of toxicity and negativity, little by little, it will get better. It will.
And I also want to add to that, it's something that has come across for me as well, where I'm like, okay, where do you draw that line? And when somebody refers to you as a narcissist, just ask them, what do you mean by that? And just get curious about what that is and continue to get curious. Don't get defensive. Ask them to clarify for you so that you have more clarity about what they mean about that. Oftentimes it is about themselves and not you.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Oh,
And
that's
they'll see it. They'll see it as you start to ask those questions, and they start to realize, like, oh, like there's
and then you
nothing
can
wrong
say
with
like,
her.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
what do you, I love that, asking questions instead of being defensive. Because oftentimes when we get defensive, we're actually giving the other person power. But it's like, yeah, I love that. What do you mean by that? And then if they describe it, it's like, oh, and why does that bother you? Like,
Exactly.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
so me feeling happy and beautiful bothers you? Why does that bother you? And like you said, I mean, let's see how that, like, just keep asking questions.
Yeah.
At some point, if it gets too toxic, because sometimes people are just like really aggressive, and you don't have to attend every fight you're invited to. So you can just
Oh,
exit,
boom, boom.
unsubscribe.
Okay, so here I keep being attacked. Ellie, can you please tell us more about that? Like, what are they saying? What do you mean?
Yeah. And who are they, and what situation is this? Because is it like a
Yeah.
living situation? Is it a work situation? Is it friends? Because like some are easier to like walk away from than others, right? Like let's say it's friends. I mean, make new friends. Be like, I'm not down with this friend group anymore. Y'all are toxic. Goodbye. You don't even have to say anything. You could just Homer Simpson out. I mean, if it's a home situation, there's probably a lot of codependent entanglements going on there. If it's like there's a financial dependency on these people or a living dependency, it'll be a journey, but that's like, okay, how can I supply myself with the resources, right? Like maybe there's a way like to get a better job or something that's like, do things that will eventually allow you to leave that situation. And depending on what your situation is, some are harder than others. But like if it's people on social media, hello, block, unsubscribe, unfollow, goodbye. If it's friends, hello, block, unsubscribe, unfollow, goodbye. Family, look, I know they say blood is thicker than water, but to me, distancing from toxic family is sometimes necessary. I mean, and depending on how entangled it is, you might need therapy, healing, and coaching to really.
Yeah, good
With
point.
that.
Good
Yeah.
point. Like having an external person sort of work that out with you and see what's really there.
Yeah.
Not really taking it from people that are, doing the attack, but just seeking somebody who's not involved in the matter could be really helpful. I would also invite you to, like, I don't know how long it's been since you've cut them off. It says here, it was family, business associates, childhood friends. I've cut them off. When there's a pattern, there's a pattern. And again, seek help in that sense to make sure that you really work through whatever it is that's happening. And if it's been a long time, I would even invite you to revisit that and see what has changed and what have you learned from that experience. I think that's always a useful exercise, at least in my opinion. Not everybody agrees with revisiting the past, but I'm like, let's make friends with the past. The past is not our enemy. It's part of our journey. A lot of people want to say like, oh, no, just the future. You don't need to look back. And I'm like, there's a lot that shapes who I am. I'm not just going to put something over it and patch it because it's going to come back and haunt me. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if I'll change my mind at some point. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but.
Well, I love everything you said. So I just want to put what you said into like an analogy, right? Like if you're just removing the bad apples, what about the roots? Because like you said, a pattern is a pattern is a pattern. And so it's like working on the roots and the seeds that you're planting. Because just cutting off the leaves or the bad apples is not really, you're just going to grow more.
Boom, work on that, girl. Get help. Okay, so tell us about your program, Amelia, because we're getting to the end. Tell us about what you currently are working on. What are your offerings? Tell us everything. I kind of want to sign up myself, especially if you have anything on femininity, because it's been on my list for a year now.
Everything I do is about femininity. It's all about flower and the bee. So that I'm all about lazy manifestation. Okay. Like, and look, I know depending on how much privilege you have or not, it's a journey though. I believe that anyone can come from any level and slowly like just lazy. What I mean by lazy manifestation is I'm going to be fabulous and I'm going to magnetize everything to me. That's how I like to do it. That's how I roll. And that's what it's all about. I dropped a link in the chat. And if you're just watching this live, you can go to ameliafortes.com/events. I have 3 master classes this month. I had one on Wednesday. So the next one is actually tomorrow. That's going to be on relationships. And next Wednesday is also on relationships. And then the following Saturday is on abundance and money. And I can say more about that. And I'm also opening up a group program for both of those topics to go much deeper into it. 6-month program, deep work in community. And sovereign wealth is really all about reclaiming abundance by loving yourself from within. Very feminine, very untangle the bad stuff. And then the relationships program is metamorphosis, which is about transforming unhealthy relationships by overcoming the 5 deceptions of love. That's a little teaser. I'll go much more into the 5 deceptions in the relationship classes that I'm having. And then with sovereign wealth, it's all about abundance, and like, it's not just about money. It's abundance in all areas, right? But like looking at where you're blocked and how to like unblock those things in your body, in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. So yeah.
Amazing. It sounds lovely. Ellie, do you want to come on video and chat with us? And maybe Amelia can help you, understand whatever's not clear or whatever was not said properly. You don't have to put the video, but do you want to use your voice?
Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, and we're happy to support you here while we're here. Whatever was said in a way that was not resonating with you, we're happy to clarify if you want to use your voice to come chat.
I see you're unmuted. So are you there?
We can hear you, Ellie. Okay. All right. Well, if you're feeling good enough to come on and chat with us, we're happy to have a conversation with you. Otherwise, we're going to close it off. Thank you so much, Amelia, for joining us, for being here. Your beautiful inside and out. Absolutely amazing, like shining ray of light in this world. You've been such an inspiration for me, and you've helped me so much in my journey in ways that you can't even imagine. We'll chat another day about it. So I'm so excited that we finally get to do this together. Thank you for joining us, and thanks everyone for being here, for chatting with us, for all your questions, and yeah, take care. And I hope this was useful to all of you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.